Ну что, друзья, всем привет и добро пожаловать на канал. Давно у нас тут не было никаких интервью. Дело в том, что последний раз, когда я брал у кого-либо интервью, это была актриса из сериала «Колесо времени», после чего там было огромное количество угроз, увольнения, штрафов и так далее. Девочка действительно попала в определенные проблемы из-за этого интервью, поэтому мне было немножко стремновато брать больше интервью у различных людей. Но когда выпала такая возможность, я решил, что все-таки не могу никак от нее отмахнуться. Это действительно очень интересная возможность, и я решил поделиться с вами ею. Я поговорил с актером Дагласом Хьюсом, который играет человека в желтом костюме, новый главный злодей в сериале «Извне», который мы с вами не раз и не два обсуждали уже. И также благодаря спонсорам, которые вы прямо сейчас видите на экране, которые поддерживают меня на Бусти, Патреоне, здесь в Ютубе, мы перевели этот ролик на русский язык с субтитрами, естественно, чтобы вы могли, если вы не знаете английский язык, тоже знать, о чем мы там с ним поговорили. В любом случае, я не профессиональный интервьюер, я не знаю, как это делать, но мне кажется, у нас все равно получилось достаточно неплохо. Мы пообщались на различные темы, в основном, конечно же, по извне, и я думаю, что вам тоже это будет интересно. В любом случае, как всегда, судить уже вам. Наслаждайтесь. So, hello, Douglas, Doug. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. We're going to discuss some interesting topics for my viewership, and hopefully we're going to get to learn more about you. Right now we know you as the man in yellow, and we would like to get to know you. So if from the beginning, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we would love to listen.
Привет, Igor. Как дела? What would you like to know? You want my biography in 25 words or less, or?
I kind of read a little bit about you on IMDb. I should have seen you in Suits. I love this TV show.
Oh no, you didn't miss a thing. I was a tiny support role.
I think for most of my viewers, obviously, it's what's interesting is the part of the Man in Yellow from TV show. This is most of my videos on my channel are regarding this TV show, and right now we have the big bad, and we can talk to you about it. But we understand that you're not going to be able to share anything with us, like spoilers related, obviously.
Well, I'm not going to be able to share anything with you because I don't know anything. I know no more about the Man in Yellow than anyone who has seen that episode. That's as much as I know.
Well, you got some probably directions from the directors, from the showrunners.
It was very minimal. I mean, I auditioned for this role 4 days before it was shot.
No.
It was a 5-minute long Zoom audition where I did the scene exactly twice. And Jack Bender was on the other end, and I did, my prepared version of it, and then he gave me some slight direction, had me alter it just a little bit, had me do it again. That was it. And then I found out, this was a Saturday afternoon. I found out late Saturday night that I had been booked, and I was on a flight to Halifax on Monday morning. So.
Okay. That is interesting, but I remember you told me that you were being auditioning from season 1, right?
Yes, I originally auditioned before the first season, and I didn't know anything about it. I got the audition, I got the sides, I read the scene, and I just went, oh my God, this stuff is brilliant. I would kill to be in this. I did the audition, I got a call back for the role, and then they called me again and they said, okay, we're going to go in another direction with that role. We want you to read somebody else. So they had me read another role, and then I didn't get that one either, and I forgot about it. And that was 3.5 years ago. And then out of the blue this spring, my agent got a call for an availability check. So she called me up and she said, do you have anything happening for the next month? This is back in the spring. And I said, no, I don't have anything going on. She said, okay. And about 3 weeks went by and we didn't hear anything. So I figured, well, they must have cast it, whatever it was. And I got an opportunity to do a day's work on something. So I called my agent to see if it was okay, because we were still in this 1 month period. And she said, no, you're still being considered for this thing. And I still didn't know at this point what it was, because initially all they wanted to do was cast from audition reels. So my agent sent in my audition reel, and I assumed they were making their decision from that. Well, then they changed their mind and they said, no, we want to do a Zoom audition. We're going to do it on Saturday. And that's when I found out it was for From. And I freaked because I thought, okay, I can't mess this up. This is strike 3, so I got to get this right. And as I say, it's such a short scene. I mean, we did it once and Jack gave me a little direction. We did it again. That was it. And on the day when we shot it, again, it was just, I was just basically going with my instincts, remembering what I had done in the audition and trying to hang on to that. And Jack, of course, in the course of doing the various setups and the various shots, gave me little bits of direction. But in terms of what to do with the character, I was essentially left to my own devices.
That's interesting. So you shot for one day and that's it, right?
An afternoon, basically.
An afternoon, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your process, before you started to do this role? I don't know what is your approach in acting at all, but I would love to know, how did you decide to approach this role? What was your guiding line here?
Well, you have to understand the situation. As I said, I found out on the Saturday night that I was flying to Halifax on Monday morning. So Sunday, I spent frantically packing and making arrangements to be out of town for several days. I got an email from the costume department because, of course, they just found out I was doing the job and they had to build my costume from scratch. So they asked me for some measurements. So I sent them a full sheet of measurements. And I believe it was on Monday. I arrived Monday afternoon. And I think it was that afternoon I had my first fitting with them. And the costume still hadn't been completely built, but, they put it on me and pinned a few things and made some adjustments and stuff, tried on some shoes and all the other pieces, and off they went. And I think it's hard to remember how all of this went. No, I think it was the following day, the Tuesday, when we had a fight rehearsal first off, so we could choreograph all that stuff. And I also had to do all the makeup that day, the makeup and the hair. And that was a very slow process because Jack was busy directing at the time. So the makeup would they'd do my hands and then they'd do a bunch of pictures and send them to Jack for approval. And he'd say yes or no. And then do the same thing with my face and my hair. And so that took a very long time. And then there was the fight rehearsal. And in all of that, I still had never seen From. So just before I left home, I signed on for a Paramount Plus subscription. And over the course of the next couple of days, I managed to see the first and the last episodes of season 1 and the first and last episodes of season 2. And that's all I had seen of the series when we shot that scene.
Okay, so when the man in yellow appears on the screen, he's very confident. He's controlling the room, even though it's not a room, but it feels like he knows exactly what he's doing. There's a lot of presence there. Okay, so you can be a villain in many different ways. You can be sneaky, maybe spidery. So once again, this choice to be, completely open, your body language is completely open. You're not worried about anything. You're not sneaking there. You are controlling this whole situation. This was your choice, or this was something that came from the director?
Well, neither, actually. It's something that came from the script.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, reading the script, it was very clear that this guy in this scene is in complete control, and I think it's a testament to John's skill as a screenwriter that he can convey all of that in 5 lines, I keep saying to people, when you read that scene, you kind of have to be an idiot not to figure out what's going on. It's very straightforward, So I kind of went with that. Now, when I auditioned, my first instinct with the scene was to inject a little bit of humor into the scene,
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I got this sense of his comfort. So I thought he can afford to play around a little bit. So I took that approach. And the second time, the only direction Jack gave me was he asked me to tone it down a little bit, and so I did it again. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And so it was basically that. On the day, I think, when you get on set, it's a whole different environment, and suddenly, you've got to come up with the goods. And so I thought about who this guy was from the little information I had, because I have no information about his background at all. I had to infer everything I know about the guy. And I thought to myself, well, whoever this being is and wherever he comes from and whatever his purpose is, in order for him to have gotten where he is now, he must have been severely damaged along the way. And that was basically the root of what I brought to the role right there. And interestingly enough, just last week, I stumbled, I don't know how I found this, but I found this quote from Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. And she talks about monsters. And here's what she says. The story of villains is much more entertaining than the story of heroes, because monsters are not born, they are made. They do not emerge from the void or darkness by themselves, but they are shaped by circumstances, by the wounds of the world around them. They reflect the deepest of human pain, rejection, loneliness, misunderstanding. A hero is defined by his acts of bravery, but a villain is the result of a heart that was once pure and ended up corrupted. The monsters, in their tragedy, show us what could happen to us all if the world turns its back on us. And when I read that, it really resonated with me because I thought, yeah, that was my sense of the man in yellow right there.
That's a beautiful quote. It kind of reminded me the whole concept of, there's like, we just passed the whole comic book movies, like the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the whole phase. It's kind of already fading. But every time you like watch one of those movies, you can see the villain versus the hero. And most of the time, there's just one difference between those two characters. Like, for example, both the villain and the hero, they're going through a tragic experience of some sort. Usually the heroes have some kind of love in his life, a family or a girl or whatever, and this is what keeps him on the hero path. And the villain loses everything. He doesn't have a love in his life anymore, so he goes to the path of a villain. Like Spider-Man losing his uncles, he still has like Mary Jane, and he has his aunt.
Yes.
So this is why he stays. Like the other, like Doc Ock, he's losing his family, he becomes a villain. I have another question about the fight between Jim and Man in Yellow. So at some point, like you're easily, I forgot the word, you're like ripping off his neck, his Adam's apple. Is it CGI or is it something with the props?
It's a bit of both. They actually built a piece around his neck that I had to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because the piece there was a lot of fake blood and stuff, so it was very wet, and it was very lightly attached to his neck, so it was very difficult to keep. I basically had to hold it in place and then pull it off. And because it was so slippery, when I pulled it off, this big chunk of flesh stayed attached to his neck, and it just kind of fell down onto his chest. And it was like, that was not the plan. It was supposed to come right off. But then when we saw what that looked like, Jack was like, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It's great. We'll throw some blood and guts on top of that. It's going to be beautiful. So that's how that went.
Okay, so I assume right now there is no point in asking you like if there are plans for season 4 for you. Like probably no conversation about it, right?
Well, all I can tell you about that is the reason they decided to have actors audition for the role rather than just send in their reels was because, well, the way it was presented to me was they apologized for making me come in to read for such a small role. Personally, I had no problem with that. I audition for roles like that all the time. But they said the reason they wanted to do the actual auditions is because if there were to be a season 4, he would be a very significant part of that. And they needed to know that I'd be able to handle that. So that's why we had the Zoom audition, basically. So I assume that's where we're going. But again, I can't really say anything definitively.
We're all hoping for it. Anyway,
you and me both.
Logically, yes. Logically, we're gonna have to see the Man in Yellow in season 4. Obviously, it looks like he is the big bad, or at least like he is way bigger than anybody else we have seen so far. And you're gonna have to watch right now the From TV show. Like, there's not enough to watch 4 episodes right now. You have to.
Oh, I've seen it all. I mean,
okay. So
as soon as I got home, I watched the rest of 1 and 2, and then as soon as season 3 came out, I watched it every week as it came out. Interestingly enough, though, one of the episodes that I chose was the finale of season 1, which just happens to have the radio conversation in it. Mm-hmm. And that was just pure luck that I happened to choose that episode because, it was the end of the season. I thought they're going to be wrapping things up. There'll be lots of information. And I'm so glad that I chose that one because there I am having to essentially repeat the same line. And it's a different actor, a different voice. So it gave me a chance to try as much as I could to match my voice to what he had done. So that was just the luck of the draw, you know?
Okay. Were you aware of what is going on with this TV show, family-wise, the community around this TV show? I mean,
Not
I've
at
seen
all.
it. Like, I have seen it 6 times, I think. I've seen many moments more than dozens of times. I've analyzed this TV show. I read about, I think, almost everything possible there. And I'm not even the craziest one. I know people that are way more into that than I am. So
I've met a number of them.
how are you experiencing this? Like, what is, like, everybody wants to talk to you right now. You're in every interview. I've seen you on many channels that I'm watching on YouTube. And it's not like it's completely new for you. You've been acting for a lot of years, but mostly I know in theater, right? You're also writing.
Yes, but you have to understand this degree of, I hesitate to use the word, but this degree of celebrity is something I have no experience with. The closest thing I can compare this to, and you've probably heard me say this already if you watched the other interviews, was back about 40 years ago when I was in my 20s. And for whatever reason, I started landing a bunch of TV commercials here in Toronto. And so I went through this very strange period where my face was everywhere. I mean, it was literally everywhere. I'd go to the metro and there'd be this huge poster with my face on it, or I'd get on the subway. I remember this one day, I got on the subway and I just happened to sit right underneath this advertisement for this beer commercial that I had done. And there's my face right above me. And there's this woman sitting across from me who's, just kind of looking around the car the way you do. And she looks at me, and then a little while later, she looks up at the ads and she sees the ad over my head. And she looks down at me. She looks up at the ad. And she looks back at me. So I thought, okay, what do I do with this? So I just went like this. I went. And then she went, looked away. She couldn't look at me. But I mean, it was that kind of stuff, I was actually working through some of this period. I was working at a bar as a doorman, believe it or not. And I was constantly getting recognized by people. But the weird thing is, it's not like being recognized from a TV show because they don't know my name. I'm not a character. I'm just some guy in a commercial, So I would have these weird conversations with people where they go, hey, you're the guy that's in the Labatt's Blue ad. And I say, yeah, that's me. And they go, wow, that's really cool. What's that like? And, I'd sort of answer that. And we'd get about 30 seconds into the conversation when I would see their eyes start to glaze over as they realized, I don't know who the hell this guy is. And so the conversation would kind of grind to an awkward halt. And then they'd say, okay, I'm going to go in the club now. And I'd say, yeah, great, And after having that conversation about 36 times, I went, I don't ever want to have that conversation again. So I just started denying that it was me, People,
I just look like that guy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, some guy. I get this all the time. I don't know who he is, And most of the time that was okay. But this one guy came in one night with a bunch of friends and he recognized me. And I said, no, that's not me. And he said, oh, come on, man. It's got to be you. You look just like the guy. And I was like, no, trust me. It's not me, And he wouldn't let it go. And his friends are kind of backing away from him, like, leave the guy alone, man. It's not him, And finally I said to him, look, why was this guy on TV? What the fuck would I be doing working here? And he went, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, well, most of the people don't know, like, for many actors, even if you land like some big roles and there's like a very nice paycheck there, that can sometimes be good for you, like for a year or something. Still, you're all the time, like if you're not a top A, like list celebrity, like when you get in millions and millions for a movie role, you between works, you usually need to think like, where do you need to bring your next paycheck?
Sure.
I've been on many conventions. Like a couple of years ago, there was a period of my life when I was flying to conventions, like on all the fantasy TV shows, and I met some actors, and I would talk to some guy who's been like the main actor on a big TV show like Spartacus, and he would tell me about his new business venture, and I would be like, I mean, you were the lead on a very big show. Why do you need business venture? And he's like, yeah, you get a nice paycheck for that, but then after it's over, you expect the call, but it's not coming. So you need to think about something else. Now, Coming back to from topic, I hope you excuse me. This is like most of the things that my audience wants to hear.
Of course, I totally understand.
So you've been working with Jim and Julie, right?
Yes.
The characters. So you haven't had any chance to work with other actors. It was a short experience with those two, and probably like the director was there, obviously. Still, any stories, something funny, something maybe happened, or if not, it's okay. Also, like if there's nothing, you can tell me there's nothing.
No, not really. I just found out the other day, I know Cliff Saunders. Cliff and I spent a year together working at the Stratford Festival here in Ontario. And I just found out that Cliff was actually there that day, but I didn't see him. He saw me at some point, apparently, but I didn't get to see him because if I'd seen him, I would have, said, hey, come on, let's hang out. But no, there wasn't really anything like that at all. I mean, it was such a whirlwind. I can't really convey how crazy those 4 days were, and then suddenly it was over and I'm being driven to the airport and that was it. So, so I'm in a kind of a weird place now because yes, I've met Ian, but Ian's gone now. And I met Hannah, who presumably I'll see next year, but I haven't met any of the rest of the cast, the existing cast anyway. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, to sort of fit in with that because they're such a tight-knit group. I mean, watching all this stuff on social media, it's clear that these guys are really close. It really is like a family. So family is an appropriate word to use to describe them. And I'm going to be the new kid on the block, so that's going to be an interesting journey, I think.
Well, nobody's really gone in this TV show. Like,
oh, I know. I was saying the same thing myself on the day we were shooting it because everybody was all sad, Jim's leaving and blah, blah. I said, hey, this is he'll be back. He'll just have different makeup.
Exactly. Yeah, he will become a ghost, or he will be saved through time travel or something.
With the time travel thing, you've got all the license in the world to do scenes from the past. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be back.
Well, since I myself is a little bit crazy in this thing, in a good sense. I hope in a good sense. We have I would remind my audience, and you just rewatched this show, you probably remember in the end of season 1, we have Tabitha's vision when she goes in the lighthouse and she's dreaming about being in the lighthouse, and then she sees Jim upside down, screaming and trying to catch some kind of a flashlight. Now, we still haven't seen anything like it. There is no explanation for it. There is no meaning for it. It's not a memory. It's not a flashback, really. It's something that's supposed to happen yet. Now, it cannot really happen unless Jim is going to be somehow alive. Since we have seen already time travel, I think there will be at least an attempt from Julie's part to save her dad. Like this is, and if she'd probably do that in her place. I would love to talk more about but I also wanted to know, is there, what is right now happening for you? What are the plans? Until the next season, there's enough time. So let's say somebody wants to see you or hear you anywhere right now. What can they do?
Well, I'm not performing anywhere at the moment. As you know, I also write plays, and my writing partner and I have just finished the first draft of our next play. It's a psychological thriller about identity theft, a three-hander. And so we're taking a bit of a break right now for the holidays, but we're going to get back together in the beginning of next year, do the second draft, do some rewrites, hopefully get a reading and get some feedback and do some more rewrites. So that's going to be the thing that I'm primarily dealing with, I guess, over the next little while.
Awesome. And hopefully this is something we're going to be able also to see in the theater, obviously, right?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Maybe this is going to be a good reason for me to visit finally. I've never been to America, obviously not to the United States, not to Canada, not to the whole continent. And it's a big dream of mine. So if I can, maybe once I'm combine between two goals, it would be amazing. Is there anything else I didn't ask you? Since this is not a question that a professional interviewer would ask usually, but as you probably noticed, I'm not a professional interviewer. So I'm like, did I miss something? Help me, please. Maybe I was supposed to ask something and I didn't.
Well, there is one thing that I would like to talk about, and that is our most recent play. It's called Deadline, and it's a comedy thriller. It's about two writers who find themselves trapped inside the murder mystery that they're writing. And so, in a sense, it has some similarities to From, quite a few actually, because you have this couple of people who are magically transported to this other world of a sort. They have no idea how they got there, no idea how to get home, and people are being killed. So it's a fair amount of overlap with this. Yeah. The other thing is they're transported to this world because they have been hired to ghostwrite a play that was begun by this famous mystery writer who dies in a mysterious house fire just a few weeks before the play is supposed to open on Broadway. So the producers are madly looking for someone to finish the script. So these two get hired. They have very little time to try and finish this script by their mentor, the greatest mystery writer ever. And it's an impossible task, but they decide to take it on. So the play begins with them reading the set description. And the set consists of a very small piece, which is their office. And the rest of the set is where the play takes place, which happens to take place on a yacht. So as they describe the set, we see it appear off behind them. And as they describe the various characters, as they come on stage, we see them appear on the stage. And as they begin to read the dialogue, we see the characters mouthing the words. And eventually the characters take over their own voices. And these two take over two of the characters. So they kind of join everybody up on the yacht, reading these two characters. They get to the end of the 25 pages. All of the other people on stage freeze. And they go, okay, let's go back to the computer. And they turn around and their office is gone. And they realize they're on the yacht. And it's like, how the hell did we get here? And more importantly, how do we get home? And the guy says, well, we kind of read our way into this mess. I guess we're going to have to write our way out. So they decide to solve the mystery from inside the mystery as they play two of the characters in the mystery itself. So this is another similarity it has with From, in the sense that the audience is trying to figure out the mystery at the same time as the characters, you know? So the same way we see every episode of From, you know, the characters are working on this mystery. The audience is basically in the same boat as them, you know, that we're both experiencing it at the same time, which is, as far as From goes, it's a really seductive aspect, I think, of the writing, because you get so drawn in, you know?
There's a saying in Russian, like it sounds a little bit better than its version in English. Basically saying, I don't understand anything, and I'm super invested. Like, this is what the hell is going on, but I still cannot like look away. Also, I don't know how you are with video games, but the concept you told also very similar to Alan Wake 2, which is an amazing video game. And I know you've been voicing some of the characters in video games that we know. So like Alan Wake is also about a writer who writes a story, and the story comes to life, and he is one of the characters in the story.
There you go.
Yeah, so that sounds amazing. I wish I was able to see it. Obviously, you need to be present in Canada to see it, but maybe...
Well, not necessarily Canada. It's been published. It was published by Broadway Licensing earlier this year. So, I mean, it could be done anywhere. And if you want to read it, just go to BroadwayLicensing.com, type in my name or type in Deadline. You'll find it right there.
Yeah, the way you describe it, like the way that its set is built, I've acted a little bit, not just an amateur, you know, not a professional, but I know what it's to be like on the stage. Obviously not a big one, but still, like what you're explaining, it sounds like a huge production. Like you're building the set while they are explaining this. It's not, I don't mean huge. I mean, it's very, very difficult, and it's super engaging to see something like this on the scene happening in live, not recorded, not edited, but happening in live. So this is something I would love to experience by visioning it, not just by reading it, but also like seeing how it's all happens on the stage. I think this is
It's had one production. Its premiere production was at a theater company called the Human Race Theater Company in Dayton, Ohio. This was 2 years ago. And it's a very small theater, and we were a bit concerned about, the demands of the play, the production demands. But actually, they were able to achieve what they needed to with the set very simply and very inexpensively, too. The beauty of this piece is that as far as the set goes, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want, depending on your budget. So, if someone were to do a big splashy production, yeah, you could really go to town on the yacht and all that stuff. But you can also do it much more simply if you don't have those kind of resources.
Well, that sounds amazing. And I thank you so much for being here with me. I hope I was not as bad as I was pretty sure I'm going to be. As I told you, I'm not an interviewer, and as you know already, English is obviously not my main language, so I tried my best, and sometimes I forgot a couple of words, and I hope that we're gonna find more reasons to make those conversations, so we'll have more topics to discuss in the future, because this was fun for me, and I hope it was fun for you, and I would love if you will say a couple of last words to the audience, because they came here for you, not for me. They want to hear something from you.
Well, first off, I love doing these too. That's one of the reasons you're seeing so many of them, because I'm quite happy to talk about this stuff. I spent many years at the Shaw Festival, and every Tuesday night we would have, in all three theaters, we would have talkbacks where the audience could stay after the show, and two of the actors would come out and they could just basically ask questions about anything they wanted, usually about the show, but anything. And a lot of the actors in the company weren't crazy about doing those talkbacks because you tend to hear a lot of the same questions. But that never bothered me because I thought, these people don't know. They only get to see the finished product. They have no idea. They have a vague idea, but they don't really have an understanding of what the process is that we go through. So if somebody asks a question like, how do you learn all those lines? I know you're tired of hearing that, but they're honestly curious about that. And we all have different ways of doing it, and describing to them, what's involved in the rehearsal process and how one actually goes about that sort of thing is interesting to me, and obviously interesting to them too. So that's why I love doing these, because inevitably you end up getting, we all saw the episode. We could talk about the episode ad infinitum. What they don't know about is me, and the larger issue of, what is it like to be an actor on this series or in theater, or just what is your life like? People are genuinely interested in that stuff. So I'm more than happy to fill them in to the extent that I can.
Well, thank you so much, Douglas. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully we're going to see you again many, many times, and not just because of From, maybe for something else too. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I'd be happy to do this anytime you like.